Welcome to the Nameless. The church basement was sealed decades ago. Something inside just knocked. That's what I told myself I heard. It was probably plumbing, old pipes expanding, wood settling, that kind of thing. Except there are no pipes down there, and the church doesn't have running water anymore. I know that because I was the one who checked. I wasn't supposed to be in the building in the first place. The church sits on the edge of town, past the feed store, past the last streetlight, where the pavement starts to buckle and weeds push up through the cracks. It's been closed since the late 80s. Not condemned, not preserved, just ignored. White paint peeling in long strips, windows clouded over. The sign out front still reads, "Service Sunday, 10 a.m., like someone planned to come back next week. Nobody ever did. I moved into town 3 months ago. Temporary job, temporary apartment, temporary life. The kind where you don't unpack everything because you're not staying long enough for it to matter. There isn't much to do here, so I started walking. The church became part of my route. I'd circle around it in the evenings, at first just passing by, then slowing down, then stopping. It wasn't creepy, just empty. Empty in a way that felt unfinished. The first time I went inside, the side door was already unlocked. That bothered me more than if it had been forced open. The air inside was stale, but not rotten. Dust hung in the light from the cracked windows. The pews were still lined up neatly, Bibles stacked at the ends, as if everyone had stood up mid-sermon and quietly walked out. No vandalism, no graffiti, just absence. The basement door was at the back of the sanctuary. Thick wood, painted the same white as the walls. A chain wrapped around the handle, not locked, just looped there. Decorative almost. There was a piece of plywood screwed over the frame, and over that, another board, and over that, a thin sheet of metal bolted into the surrounding wall. Someone didn't just close the basement, they sealed it. That's what made me curious. Church basements are usually boring. Folding chairs, old nativity sets, boxes of donated clothes, maybe a furnace. You don't seal boring things. I asked around town about it. Most people shrugged. It's been like that forever. Don't remember. Probably flooded. One older man at the diner paused when I mentioned it. He stirred his coffee too long. They had some issues down there, he said. What kind of issues? He blinked at me like he'd forgotten the question. Water damage, he said finally. I think. But he didn't sound convinced. That night, I went back. Not to break in, just to look. The sun was setting. The church cast a long shadow across the grass. For a second, it looked taller than it should have been, like the steeple was stretching. I told myself that was just perspective. Inside, it was darker than before, the air heavier. I stood in front of the basement door and listened. Nothing. I leaned closer. Still nothing. Then, a knock. Soft, controlled. 3 taps. From the other side. I froze. It wasn't loud. It wasn't frantic. It sounded almost polite. I waited for it to happen again. It didn't. I told myself it was the building settling. Maybe temperature changes causing the metal sheet to flex. But it had been a clear day, mild, no sudden shifts. And it hadn't sounded like metal. It sounded like knuckles. I didn't sleep much that night. The next morning, I called the town office, asked for records of the church, renovations, incident reports, anything. The woman on the phone put me on hold for a long time. When she came back, her voice had changed. We don't have any files on that property prior to 1992. What about before that? Silence.
Our system only goes back to 92. Was it built then? No, she said. It was already there. So where are the records? Another pause. I don't know. That's when it started to feel wrong. Not scary. Just wrong.
I went to the library next. Small building, one room, local history section along the back wall. I found old town directories, newspaper clippings, photo albums donated by families. The church appeared in photographs as far back as the 1940s. Picnics on the lawn, weddings on the steps, Christmas pageants. But every photo of the interior stopped at the sanctuary. No basement shots, no mention of events held downstairs. In one group photo, taken inside, there was a door visible behind the congregation, the basement door, except it looked smaller. And there was no metal sheet, no extra boards, just a normal door. I checked the date on the photo, 1986, 2 years before the church supposedly closed. I asked the librarian about it. She squinted at the image. Huh, she said. I don't remember them having a basement. It's right there. She leaned closer. That's probably just a storage closet. It goes down, I said. She gave a thin smile. Well, it doesn't matter now.
That phrase stuck with me. It doesn't matter now. That evening, I went back again. I don't know why. Curiosity, maybe? Or stubbornness? I wanted the knocking to have a simple explanation. I brought a flashlight. The sanctuary felt smaller in the dark, the pews closer together, the ceiling lower. I stood in front of the sealed door and pressed my ear against the metal. Cold. For a long time, there was nothing. Then I heard something that wasn't a knock. It was softer than that. A shift, like weight adjusting on old wood. Slow, careful. I stepped back. "Hello?" I said. My voice sounded swallowed. No response. I waited. Nothing. I told myself it could be an animal. Raccoon, stray cat, something that had gotten trapped decades ago and survived on what exactly? That didn't make sense. There were no gaps, no holes. The sealing job was thorough, professional. I ran my hand along the edge of the metal sheet. No rust around the bolts. They'd been replaced. Recently.
That's when I realized something else. The dust on the floor was undisturbed, except for a faint arc near the door, as if something had been dragged across it. Not heavy enough to leave a deep groove, just enough to disrupt the layer. I crouched down. The arc was about 3 feet wide, centered directly in front of the basement door, like someone had stood there, turning back and forth, waiting. I left after that. I told myself I wouldn't go back, but the next night, I did. This time, I didn't go inside. I stayed outside, sat on the grass across from the church and watched. The building looked harmless in the moonlight, just wood and nails. Around midnight, a light flickered in one of the side windows. Not bright, just a brief glow, then gone. I blinked. It didn't come back. There's no electricity connected to the building. I checked. The power lines stop at the property line. I walked home slowly. The next morning, I returned with my phone, planning to record whatever happened. The side door was locked. Not jammed. Locked. There hadn't been a lock before. I circled the building. Every window was shut tight from the inside. I peered through a crack in one pane. The pews were gone. All of them. The sanctuary floor was empty, completely bare. I stumbled back. That wasn't possible. I had been inside less than 12 hours earlier. There's no way someone could have removed every pew without making noise, without leaving tracks, without anyone noticing. I went to the diner, asked if anyone had seen trucks near the church. Blank stares. What church? The one by the feed store. There was a pause. Oh, someone said. That old place. Yeah. Did anyone see them clearing it out? Clearing what out? The pews. They're gone. A few people exchanged looks. It's been empty, the older man said slowly. For years. No, I said. I was inside 2 days ago. He frowned. You shouldn't go in there. Why? He hesitated. It's not safe. Because of the basement? His expression shifted. What basement? The room went quiet. I laughed. Come on. But no one joined in. I left. Back at the church, I tried the door again. Still locked. I walked around to the back. There, near the foundation, I saw something that hadn't been there before. A vent. Small, rectangular, set low into the concrete, painted white, fresh paint. I knelt down. The slats were angled downwards so I couldn't see inside. I leaned closer. The air coming from it was cool, not cold, just cooler than the outside. And there was a faint smell. Not decay, not mold, just air that hadn't moved in a long time. I listened. At first, nothing. Then, breathing. Slow. Measured. I jerked back so fast I hit my head on the siding. I stayed frozen, heart pounding, waiting for it to repeat. It didn't. I forced myself to lean in again. Silence. Total silence. I told myself it was wind, except there was no wind. I went home and searched the church online. Nothing. No website, no archived pages. No mention of its closure. Even the town's historical society page didn't list it. It was like the building existed physically, but nowhere else. I drove to the county records office in the next town over, asked for property maps. The clerk typed for a while. There's no structure listed on that lot, she said. What do you mean? It's marked as vacant land. That's not possible. She turned the monitor slightly. The map showed an empty square where the church should have been, just grass. I felt a slow pressure building behind my eyes. Can I see older records? I asked. She clicked through several tabs. They all say the same thing. I drove back in silence. When I reached the edge of town, I could see the steeple from the road. Tall, unmistakable. I pulled over and stared at it. It was there. It had always been there. That night, I decided to stay inside the church. If something was happening, I wanted to witness it. I brought a chair from my apartment and set it up in the sanctuary. The room was empty, just like before. No pews, no decorations, just open space and the sealed basement door. I turned off my flashlight and waited. Hours passed. Nothing happened. No knocks, no lights, no breathing, just stillness. But the stillness felt deliberate, like the building was aware of me. Around 2 a.m. I heard footsteps, not from the basement, from above, on the roof. Slow, even, crossing from one end to the other. There are no trees close enough to scrape against it. No loose branches. I didn't move. The footsteps stopped directly overhead. Then, 3 taps. Directly above where I sat, the same pattern as before. Polite. Measured. I looked at the basement door. The metal sheet reflected a faint outline of me in the dark, but for a second, just a second, it looked like there was someone standing behind me. Close. Too close. I spun around. No one was there. When I looked back at the door, my reflection was normal, alone. I don't remember falling asleep, but I woke up outside, on the grass, morning light in my eyes. The church stood in front of me, white paint peeling, windows clouded. The sign still reading Service, Sunday, 10 a.m. The side door was slightly open. I walked inside. The pews were back, lined up neatly, dust undisturbed. The basement door looked smaller. No metal sheet, no extra boards, just a simple wooden door, with a brass handle. I approached it slowly. There was no chain, no bolts, nothing sealing it. I reached for the handle and hesitated because I couldn't remember if it had ever been sealed at all. Maybe I'd imagined the metal, the bolts, the vent, the breathing. Maybe the town had always been right. Maybe there was no basement. I stood there for a long time, hand hovering inches from the handle, waiting for a knock. It never came. I left the church that morning and never went back. A week later, my job ended early.
Funding cut. Position eliminated. Temporary, just like everything else. I packed my things. On my last drive out of town, I looked toward the edge of the road where the church should have been. There was nothing there. Just an empty lot. Flat grass swaying in the wind. No steeple, no sign, no building. I pulled over, walked the perimeter. The ground was smooth, undisturbed. No foundation, no debris, no vent. I checked my phone for the photos I'd taken. They were gone. Every single one. The folders were empty. I tried to convince myself I had the wrong location, that I'd mixed up towns. Except I hadn't. I know I hadn't. Because sometimes, late at night, when everything is quiet, I still hear it. 3 soft knocks. Not from below, not from above, but from somewhere close. Measured, patient, waiting. And the worst part is, I'm starting to think the basement was never sealed to keep something in. It was sealed to keep something out.